Welcome back. Now, with the forthcoming Edo governorship elections and Ondo elections as well, all of these agitations, tension, warnings coming through from the police, there are concerns about the rules and those who are supposed to enforce the rules, even the players themselves. This is why there are questions as to how do these persons conduct themselves? Are people satisfied? What do we need to improve? How do we ensure we get better elections moving forward? These are some of the issues we intend to discuss this morning. We've got Shehu Gabam, who is the National Secretary of the SDP, joining us from Abuja. Good morning. All right, and we also do have Mr. Clement Wankwa, who is the Executive Director of PLAC. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as well today.
Thank you.
All right, let me start with you, Mr. Gamam. From what you've seen in terms of not just these elections, previously, there were those who expected certain facilities, laws to be put in place to ensure that voters can go out there comfortably, cast their votes, and go home, and at the end of the day, knowing that, yes, it was fair, their votes counted. But looking at these forthcoming elections now, what concerns are there for you in terms of us having an improved election?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. First and foremost, I think we haven't done much to correct our electoral process. We haven't done much to protect our polling unit in terms of people exercising their franchise. And in consonance with what the president said at every occasion, that we want to leave a legacy of free and fair election. If you look at what happened recently in Ondo local government elections, what emanated from that local government elections, where you see people printing ballot papers, stocking them, the act of violence, the act of arson that were associated to that local government election, clearly spell a doom of what is likely to come out from both Ondo and Edo local government election. In any society, in any government that is serious, committed to conduct free and fair election, four fundamental things must take place. One, the people that are in government, the party that are in government, must be committed to the tenet of democracy, the rule of law, the transparency and the sanctity of the electoral process. Number two, the government must give a clear instruction to security agencies that have responsibility of creating ambience, creating a sense of belonging, and creating a fair environment for an average voter to come and cast his vote and for his vote to be counted. Number three, the political class and the political parties must accept that we belong to a democratic institution, and we must respect the sanctity of democratic institutions. We must allow system to prevail. All politicians and political parties must go beyond recruiting talks or act of thuggery to disrupt the electoral process. So long as the politicians do not accept this as a fundamental challenge in building a viral nation, a very strong democratic institution, we are wasting our time. Finally, the INEC, the empire. INEC must not take side with any party. INEC must not take side with the party that is in power. INEC must provide an environment that will give a voter a sense of belonging, to attract him to come out of his home, to cast his vote, and to have that complete feeling that his vote is going to count. His vote will make the difference, and his result will not be changed. In the absence of these four things, we will just be wasting our time talking over and over that we wish and we are praying that we'll have free and fair elections. The last election we had that is still being counted as the best free and fair election in the history of Nigeria is June 12th. And it's simply because the actors as of then are not participants in the election. So they provided the ambience for people to conduct themselves, participate in an election without being harassed or intimidated. And all these would have been reduced the kind of crisis we are having today, if the president would have signed the 2018 Electoral Act that was amended, you know, that have to do with sequencing of the elections.
Let me take it from there on to
of all those things.
Right. Let me take it from there on to Mr. Nwankwo. He had a meeting with the IGP in attendance in Abuja yesterday and raised some concerns, some of which we heard in that report. Mr. Nwankwo, could you, when we hear you talk about the question of fake policemen. Now, this is something that's lingered for a while, and then, so what's the thinking? What was it that you wanted addressed, specifically about that first?
Thank you, Chamberlain. It's been a direction that politicians have taken, that each time that the elections have been conducted, that they devise means to subvert the system. And one of that subversion is the use of fake policemen, use of fake observers, basically substituting sometimes even INEC officials, especially ad hoc staff, being deployed for elections. So the conversation we were having with the IG, and he was also on the same page with us, is how do you curb people sewing police uniforms? And I think one of the most bizarre cases we saw was what happened in the elections in Kogi State, the governorship elections. We were all very concerned that you had fake policemen in operation, and it remains a concern. I think for the security services, it's still the same issue, that you have fake policemen, fake officials coming into the electoral environment and seeking to subvert the system. So the Inspection of Police was quite clear in stating that there will be special measures taken to try to identify who genuine policemen are, and that these special measures would not be publicized until a few hours to the election. So we are waiting to see these special measures put in place that the police has promised in the meeting, in the closed meeting we had with them after the media event. But certainly, it is a problem that even the police recognizes. We as observers see it on the field when we do go out, and we need to be sure that elections in this country are conducted in ways that give confidence to people that those that they have elected are people who they have thumbprinted for. Those who are governing their affairs are people who they have voted for. And as long as we keep having a situation where people subvert the system, inflate the voters register, introduce fake INEC officials, fake policemen, fake observers into the system, for so long will our democracy be challenged. For so long will the legitimacy of those...
I'd like to stay with that issue of confidence which you raised, especially when you talk about the Kogi governorship election. And one wonders, how will people have confidence if it appears as though not much has been done to crack that issue of fake policemen and other irregularities that came up in Kogi State? So how much confidence really can people get looking back and saying, well, we saw what happened in Kogi State and not much has changed?
I think the IGP was quite clear in recognizing that this is a problem that exists, and for Edo State, he has made promises. But again, like you point out, I think it's a question, how do you encourage citizens? How do you give people the confidence to feel that when they come out and vote, it matters? How do you tell people that their votes counts? These are issues that is a challenge for everyone, for INEC, for the police, for stakeholders in the electoral process. Because as long as people feel that it doesn't matter what vote they cast, for so long will our democracy be illegitimate. And as long as you keep delegitimizing our democracy and our electoral system, for so long then will you have a situation that the confidence in the electoral system is questioned. And I think that it's dangerous for democracy to have people discountenance the importance of their vote or voting. And I think it's a challenge for everyone to put in all that they can to ensure that we build confidence in the electoral system.
Perhaps one way to look at building confidence is to ensure that whoever is caught doing something wrong during an election does not do it again and does not do it and get away with it, because that will definitely, as you said, delegitimize the entire process. Now, it's not the first time. For the police to know that there are fake police, just as you have said, it means that they can identify these fake policemen. It's another extension to that is that there have been people who committed electoral offenses over time, and the word out there is that these things are not punished. There is no deterrence, so to speak, for contravening all of these regulations of government. Fake police come and go and no one gets punished and all of that. How do we even begin to delegitimize by building trust when no one is punished for doing wrong during elections?
I think it goes to the point, and Ayo and the rest of the crew, we've had these conversations in the past. There has to be a deliberate effort by the government, by the National Assembly, to ensure that the recommendations made by Justice Mohammed Lawal Uwais Committee on Electoral Reform is put in place. And one of the recommendations we made was for the creation of an Electoral Offences Commission, a commission that everyone has confidence in, because sometimes when a commission is set up by government, it is peopled by partisan interests. But if you do have an Electoral Offences Commission where everyone is confident about the commission, where everyone believes the commission is independent, and where the commission is empowered to apprehend people who commit offenses. There are all sorts of electoral offenses defined in the Electoral Act, including pre-election offenses, including campaign financing, including vote buying, including imposition, including fake policemen, fake observers, fake officials. All of these are issues of concern that if you do have an Electoral Offences Commission that we are happy with and the country is happy with, there will be confidence and people would feel that they can come out and vote and their votes will count. In anywhere in the world where you cannot hold people to account, and it's not just Nigeria, anywhere in the world, even in the most advanced democracies, you will have people seek to find ways to subvert a system. And as long as we in this country operate without care about the law, with impunity, and with no one ready to rein in those who are so very anxious to seek for the loopholes, then for so long will you continue to see deterioration, not just in our national development or national infrastructural system, but especially in our democracy. And once democracy is absent, then the issue of development is stultified. So it is a major challenge, and I think it's important for the National Assembly, which has the Electoral Offences Commission right before it now. It's not a contentious bill. Everyone agrees with it. Even the president had in the past made a commitment to passing the Electoral Offences Commission bill. So I think it's something that all of the interests in the political system need to aggregate and decide to bequeath to this country an Electoral Offences Commission that holds people to account for electoral offences.
Well, let me take this to Mr. Gabam. The other time, one of the first few points that you raised those 4 points that will prove whether or not government is sincere about having free, fair, and credible elections. The number 1 point you mentioned was that of the intention of the government at the center, the ruling party, demonstrating transparency. Is there anything that you have seen that suggests that government is not being transparent?
Well, a lot, not just once. If you look at our recent experience in Kogi states, vis-a-vis what the president have said, a very clear message to the security agencies, a very clear message to INEC. The election should be free and fair, should be properly guided. The instance cited by my brother over there, Kogi State, where thousands of police were deployed, it is shocking to note that fake police has been identified, fake INEC has been identified, results were changed, were distorted. Talks took over the whole polling unit, shooting everywhere, brandishing guns, and nothing happens. And there is no way in any civilized society that you can tell me a government that have control of security agencies, a president and commander-in-chief, seeing such things happening. There was no deterrence, there was no arrest. On the side of the INEC, there was no serious prosecution of people that have been found wanting, despite petitions and complaints. It's a clear indication that the moment the presidency is not committed to the transparency of the electoral process, the bandwagon effect will always be there. The taking of the side that, look, we want to win this election, irrespective of what the situation is all about, will definitely truncate the transparency of the process. It's not a miracle. It's something that we took it as a tradition in our own politics in Nigeria. The moment the government that is in power have interest in any election, either season or off-season election, they will find every process to have it on their own way. And that is what is creating all this tension. That is what is creating a lot of distrust and disaffection in the electoral process. The INEC is grossly confused on how to conduct free and fair election because the security agencies are teleguided by the executive. They ask them what to do and what not to do. So it's a difficult situation for anybody to tell you that this is an easy thing to be done, unless we are committed to having a very strong, a very transparent system that will give everybody a sense of belonging, that will create a participatory democracy, and the sanctity of the people that are coming to come out to queue and cast their vote, and their vote is going to count. In the absence of that, we'll continue going around the cycle every year in, every year out, talking about how to have a free and fair election. Police will say that, look, we are bringing new reforms, we'll do this, we'll do that. These are the same policemen. They will deploy thousands of policemen, and yet they cannot detect police that are fake. I thought it beat my imagination for a police corps to say that fake policemen are all over the place. It shows that we are never prepared, we are never serious, we are never organized. Every security apparatus have their own system of communication to identify who is real, who is not real. So these are issues that have already suffocated our electoral process, and we are finding it very difficult to get out of it.
All right, Mr. Nwankwo, tell us about, yes, you did say that some of these reforms or things that should be in place for next general elections or even before Ondo would take more than this time. It means it will happen after the elections. How should we be proceeding? What should we be doing to ensure that, look, this electoral act this time and some of those other measures, concerns that you did raise in that meeting are addressed?
I think the key thing, and I was happy to see that the president is concerned about executive legislative relations. Yes, he did swear in a committee which is of his own party and some members of the legislature to begin to harmonize relationships between the executive and the legislature. And I think it should be a committee that should be expanded and be comprehensive, such that you have not just an APC and legislature harmonization or even committee to ease relationship, but an executive legislative committee. And we've advocated this repeatedly, a situation where you do not have the executive pushing bills, pursuing bills, and leaving the entirety of bills to be introduced by the National Assembly members is not healthy for development. I think that the executive needs to drive a lot of bills, and if you do have the executive drive a bill on electoral matters, there is already a lot of resource, a lot of materials within the National Assembly, within INEC, with the police, with civil society, to feed into that bill that will then be driven by the executive to ensure that it has speedy passage. The last time we had the Electoral Act that was passed by National Assembly, the president refused the assent because he said it was too close to the election. But of course, everyone was concerned that the president did not sign it because some of the innovations in that Electoral Act that the president refused to sign had included innovations that introduced a whole lot of electronic management of elections. And I think that the current draft bill before the National Assembly also captures all of this and even more. But the president, the executive, the attorney general needs to exercise its functions as attorney general and drive bills in the National Assembly for development, not just on electoral act matters, but across. Because where you have an attorney general that's not driving bills, then it really means that you have all sorts of bills through National Assembly, and sometimes it's a waste of time because then either the executive doesn't sign it because he didn't drive it, or really it's not a very well thought out bill. So I think a lot needs to be driven, and the National Assembly needs to pursue very urgently the passage of an electoral act bill. And one of the challenges with the present electoral act is, of course, that we have different versions of it. You have no less than 4 different amendments that have been made to the 2010 Electoral Act. Even those printed and sold in traffic is confusing for a lot of people. So we have advocated that the National Assembly takes in place or takes on board what is proposed to be a repeal and reenactment, which means you capture all that is within the existing law at this time, taking all the amendments and pass a new law that is in one document that nobody is confused about. Now, with respect to political parties, there has to be a greater scrutiny and monitoring of political parties. A lot of the political parties are constantly seeking ways to subvert the system, and that's why a political party or a candidate will get up and go and sew police uniforms. Now, for the police, you can understand that this is a very difficult system for them to manage, where people feel entitled to sew police uniforms. They should, the police, go all out and find out the best ways of capturing these people who are mostly politicians seeking to subvert our electoral system.
Well, one wonders really, Mr. Nwankwo, how far-reaching, forgive me, I need to go back to that, because if we are going to instill trust, we need to make sure that those who contravene the laws do not get away with it. I believe, you're a lawyer, we have significant number of laws in this country to deal with existing threats that we have, especially as it relates to elections. 61 people INEC prosecuted in the fallout of the 2015 elections. 1,119 electoral offenders were detained post-2019 elections. The problem then is, 1, how strong a deterrence are these measures taken? 2, the ones that are detained, the ones that are prosecuted, how many of them are in jail? How strong enough? How strong are these to deter people from committing these offenses?
I think you've had a situation where the police started out at independence, being one unit, and so they were in charge of apprehending offenders for drug offenses. They were in charge of apprehending corrupt cases. They were in charge of virtually so much. Over time, you've had the functions of the police dissipate into different agencies. And so you have the NDLEA, you have EFCC, you have several other agencies that have emerged as a result of the challenge to the police in being able to carry out so much distended functions and activities. And that's why we are saying that with respect to the role of the police, there's so much that the police has to do, so little resources available to it. And so if you are interested in tackling the challenge of electoral offenses, the recommendation for an electoral offenses commission then becomes attractive. And when you have a commission charged, well-funded, and with a lot of confidence in it by stakeholders, then that commission will be able to caught people who infringe the law on electoral issues. Now, the police says we've arrested 61 or whatever numbers of people during an election. At the end of the day, not a lot of them are being prosecuted because there is no specialized interest or responsibility or unit within the police that is able to bring, investigate, and prosecute people for electoral offenses. So
okay, well, we do have to go. We do thank you both for talking to us. Mr. Clement Nwankwo, Executive Director of PLAC, and Mr. Shehu Gabam, the National Secretary of the SDP. All right, then, we will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.